also interesting to hear about, keeping men out of women's sports and these lawsuits that these other states are facing, trying to challenge President Trump's agenda. So just speaking to some of these guys on what the messaging's been like, of course, trying to reach our younger audiences and getting our younger demographic voting and involved and engaged with what the president's doing. It was definitely a once in a lifetime experience, and I'm hoping that we're definitely part of another fun opportunity like that in the future.
Every week at this time, we go to the North Lawn of the White House to join our friend Monica Paige.
Live from the North Lawn of the White House, it's Beyond the Fence with Monica Paige.
Monica Paige joining us live on Super Talk TV. You can see behind her the wonderful North Lawn of the White House. What's up, Monica?
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So are the new flagpoles going to be in the camera shot moving forward?
I hope so. I think there's going to be one on each side. I think we're going to get one the closest to this side, and then we're going to have one on the far east side, the east wing side of the White House. So looking forward to that. That was a really cool moment, by the way.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised that we didn't have flagpoles at the White House already. I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised President Trump didn't think of it in his first term, but I'm glad we're doing it in this term. And he's paying for it. No taxpayer dollars. He's paying for it out of pocket. Two big, beautiful 100-foot flagpoles. We're definitely excited about it.
Which is pretty cool. Now, another pretty cool event, which happened on Monday, and this, I don't know about you, this week has flown by. Like the fact that the Easter egg roll was on Monday feels like an eternity ago. But you're at the White House, you're doing the Easter egg roll, and you're standing there with your fiance, and President Trump walks by, and you guys have this exchange.
How are you? This is my beautiful fiance, Monica.
Nice to meet you, Mr. President.
Any advice for the new? Make sure you like each other. don't get mad. Yeah. Real quickly,
Thank you. Yes, he is.
So I guess the question that everybody wants to know is, do you like your fiance?
I don't just like him. I love him. It's the funniest thing. Chris, it was wild. So I was prepping for this hit and I was like, what happened this week? Because the weeks feel like they just go by so quickly, like you were just saying. And I was like, oh my God, the Easter egg roll was on Monday.
Yes.
And
I did the same
wild.
thing. I did the same thing.
And it was funny because there were so many members of the media who were in attendance at this event, and they had us kind of split up into different sections of the South Lawn. So there were different risers. We were on a very less crowded section of the Easter egg roll, and we were just kind of meandering around. And then we see media members kind of crowding around the president in certain areas as he's walking. And we looked at each other and we said, we're going to stand right here. We're not going to move. We're going to wait for him. We just don't like to crowd around the president. Like, let him do his thing, whatever. He's here for kids, for families. It's kind of inappropriate to ask certain questions at events like these. So I could try to stay away from certain topics, like war and crime. And, so we were just kind of standing around, and all of a sudden he comes and walks over. And of course, he sees Brian Glenn from Real America's Voice, and he's a big fan of his. So he comes over, and I was like, am I really going to shake hands with President Trump? And thank goodness Dan introduced me. And, it's very brief exchange, but it was very, very smart words of wisdom from a man who seems to be very happily married to Melania. As we saw off the South Lawn this morning, he put his arm around her waist as they were leaving for Rome. And it was just very exciting. It was a very cool moment, very brief, but definitely one that will go down in books. I mean, this guy has been almost assassinated, and now he's giving us words for marriage advice. I mean, it's pretty special.
It's pretty crazy. And then the Daily Mail did like a whole write-up on you guys.
It's funny. I was like, they better watch themselves, because I used to work there. So if they ever came after me in some kind of hit piece article, I would probably reach out to them and say, excuse me, I used to work for you guys. You were my first job. So be nice.
Your first job was at the Daily Mail?
Yeah, I was a video producer. I sat behind a computer for 9 hours a day, 7 days a week, almost, depending on what the days looked like. But yeah, that was my very first job.
Would you consider the job you have now a bit of an upgrade?
A little bit.
as you have the White House behind you in the shot.
Yeah.
So there was a lot more going on at the White House. So you had the Easter egg roll, and then midweek we had the American heroes in the Oval Office. Donald Trump honored a group of wounded veterans. What was that moment like?
I mean, it's so special to see him interact with our veterans, wounded or not. The president loves our veterans, military members, and he always makes time to carve out like a section of his busy day just to speak to the families, and just get to know these guys. I mean, Joe Biden, he would if anything, would introduce them to the crowd and just talk to them very, very briefly, maybe like a scripted moment. Don't really understand what he's trying to say because it was very hard for all of us to really understand what he was saying.
Yeah, we don't know
But
what he said
President
either.
yeah, President Trump always makes the time, which is it goes so underreported and underappreciated. I mean, even making time for us, a young couple on the South Lawn, and now making time for our military veterans, those who have served our country and put their lives on the line. And there's no other president who is more pro-veteran, pro-military than the one currently in office. And he proves that every single day.
Yeah, it was a very cool moment. He gave those veterans his challenge coin, which is just a massive coin. Have you seen those in person?
I have not, but I've seen them on camera, and I'm pretty sure it would fit in the palm of my hand.
Yes, and then we kind of talked about Daily Mail and bouncing around a little bit, but you had more hit pieces against you out this week. This time, new media has been under attack by CNN and Politico. They really don't like you guys, do they?
Yeah, clearly they see us as a threat. I see it as a good thing because we're actually bringing facts based on what we hear in the press briefing room. We're bringing the real accomplishments of this administration, and clearly the mainstream media doesn't like it. I think what's interesting about these pieces from the New York Times, CNN, Politico is that to me, I think there's no such thing as bad press. I mean,
Yeah.
if this is all you got on me, then that's fine with me. I mean, I'm happy to be here and be amongst everybody. And what's interesting is that I'm not new to the White House. I covered the previous administration. So I am not, strangers to some of these members here. And what's also what I find very curious is that anytime the president does something, then these same people who write hit pieces on all of us are so quick to run after the president, chase after him. When he
Yes.
was here on the North Lawn surveying where he's going to put the two big, beautiful flagpoles, he kind of gathered back here where I'm pointing. There's a set of stairs that lead beyond the press briefing room, and it's called the Palm Room Doors. And that's where we usually meet before we go to the South Lawn to watch him depart. And he gathered over there, and so many media members just chased after him. I believe a couple of members of the administration posted on X how
Yes.
funny it was to see them all scrambling to chase after the
Well,
president.
it
He
looked
did a
like
very, very brief gaggle. Yeah.
it looked like teenage girls at a Beatles concert. Is what it looked
Yeah,
like.
exactly. And then after they, get their 2 cents from the president, of course, they'll run back to these tents over here and they'll start to fabricate some of the accomplishments that the president has been doing.
Yep.
So I just think it's a very interesting and strange dynamic. But hey, listen, as long as I'm in that brief room getting questions on behalf of the American people, the common sense questions, what people really truly care about, I'm more than happy to do that every single day.
Yeah, no, that's what we love about you. And you're down there. You are part. You're lumped in with the new media. And they had a new media row. Was this yesterday? The media row happened, and you were a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a cool moment. I understand that it was about 10, approximately, roughly 10 other media outlets, including ourselves, in the Indian Treaty Room in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which isn't here, but it's actually right next door to the White House. So if you're looking at the White House, it's to the right. It's a gorgeous building. And that was, I think, my second time in there. My first time was to get my press badge. But being in that room, it's stunning. It's so historical. And the architecture is absolutely fascinating and stunning. And we were sitting in there, and we had members of the administration, some cabinet officials, some senior officials come through. We had senior policy advisors. The director of ICE was in there as well. Tom Homan came by as well. Deputy comms directors came in, and they're really kind of the brains behind some of the executive orders that we've seen the president sign. So I had the privilege of speaking to May Mailman. She is the senior policy advisor for the president, and she is also a Harvard graduate. So it was interesting to ask her about the freezing of funds to Harvard. Also interesting to hear about, keeping men out of women's sports and these lawsuits that these other states are facing, trying to challenge President Trump's agenda. So just speaking to some of these guys on what the messaging's been like, of course, trying to reach our younger audiences and getting our younger demographic voting and involved and engaged with what the president's doing. It was definitely a once in a lifetime experience. And I'm hoping that we're definitely part of another fun opportunity like that in the future.
Yeah, no, it looked really cool, and one of those big news stories this week has been the threats to cutting funding and the executive orders signed against these universities. You have to disclose your foreign gifts. Looking at you in the Penn Biden Center, Joe Biden. What is that? What's the word on that behind the scenes? You said you spoke with a senior policy advisor who was also a Harvard graduate. What's their vibe on this kind of stuff?
Well, they're very serious about this cutting of funding and freezing this funding. And I'm sure that Harvard's not going to be the only one. I believe the president may be looking at other universities as well. Unfortunately, we didn't get to dive into the details. I think that a lot of these administration officials like the president to speak for himself in this regard. But when it comes to the education system and DEI, I mean, we've already seen two judges so far come out and try to block President Trump from removing and banning DEI from K through 12 schools. And this is kind of the current theme or trend that we're seeing so far is it's not necessarily the local government, it's now going to these judges
Yep.
as well, which I think is important to keep an eye on. I mean, we've not only seen trying to block President Trump banning DEI, but trying to block him from withholding federal funds to sanctuary cities and jurisdictions, trying to get him to try to stop providing proof of citizenship to vote. These are just a few of the many things that we've been seeing from these judges and these alleged reports that these judges are housing Tren de Aragua members
Yes.
also, which is so unbelievable. I mean, these are members that kill and rape women. I mean, hello, and they're reportedly housing them, and then there's been these raids. So this could be perhaps a judicial coup of sorts. So
Yep. That's
I'm
what
interested to
Stephen Miller
see.
called it.
Yeah, I want to see what the president says about this. That was a question that I wanted to ask the president on the South Lawn this morning before he left for Rome. But I'm sure we'll hear from the president next week if this continues, which I'm sure it will. So definitely stay tuned with that. But what we've been hearing is, the president is getting ready to sign some more executive orders next week, and that could include more when it comes to schools and more when it comes to American families as well. We've already got a teaser this past week of that $5,000 baby bonus for new moms after delivery. I think the president is looking to expand on something like that next week.
Okay, so that'll
Mhm.
come next week, and hopefully we hear some more on sanctuary city laws.
Yeah.
What's it like when the president departs the South Lawn? So he's on his way to Rome. He's going there for the funeral of the Pope. He's going to be meeting with world leaders. What do you know about
Mhm.
the visit? What do you know about the meetings? And then what's the process like when the president leaves and he goes to Air Force One to depart for these kinds of trips?
Yeah. So, as we know so far, the president is currently on the flight to Rome, where he will be paying his respects to Pope Francis at the funeral. But he's also taking the time to meet with other world leaders while everyone's kind of gathered in one place to discuss trade, EU tariffs. He said that he spoke with China's Xi Jinping. He has spoken to China multiple times. Also, believe that there's talks regarding the Russia-Ukraine war. We know Russia's been striking Ukraine. President Trump posting on Truth Social to stop doing
Yep.
that because they're trying to come up with this peace deal and it's not working if Russia's not going to do its part. So I believe those negotiations are also in talks as well, especially getting other countries involved with Europe in regards to this war. But when it comes to these departures, it can be a hit or miss whether or not the president does decide to take questions. He spoke for about 3 minutes this morning. We gathered around 8:15 at the Palm Room doors back there. That's where we can enter the South Lawn. And then it's so funny, Chris, because when we get to the South Lawn, as soon as we touch down, we pass through these doors, the members of the media run. I'm telling you, they run to get a spot, the
Really?
best spot. Yeah, it's so ridiculous.
And
So they're all chasing the spot, the cameramen, lugging all their equipment, running to get the best spot in the very front row, just so they can get a question from the president. And then, I'm so little, I'm 5'3". So when these cameramen are on the ladders and everyone's wearing, their tall heels, and I like, no matter how many inches of heels that I wear, I will never be able to see over these people. So I try to squeeze into a little spot just to get my camera out and see if he'll take a question. He hasn't taken a question of mine just yet, but it's like you have to fight some of these people in order to get a good spot. So
I'm gonna crowd fund a pair of New
yeah,
Balances for you, so that way you can get out there as
ultra
quickly as
high
possible.
platforms,
Yes,
please, or
yes,
like a little step stool.
I got you. I got you. Don't worry. We'll
Yeah.
make that happen.
It's very chaotic though, for sure,
How
every
many
time.
how many members of the press are in those gaggles usually on average?
So when the president leaves on the earlier side, so this morning it was around 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, it was a little less crowded than it usually is. But if he's leaving at like 4 p.m. on a Friday, you can expect double that size. So I definitely want to say it's could be around 50 people.
That's a lot.
That also includes videographers as well. So it can get really crowded, but it's always fun. It gets really windy because Marine One's going and you can watch it lift off up off the South Lawn. It's the coolest thing. It never gets old. But it's a different perspective on the White House as well, because usually you see this view and then seeing the other side, it's very beautiful.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I want to check it out one day. We're talking with Monica Paige. She's our White House reporter from Turning Point USA. What is a story that you feel like has been underreported this week that deserves more ears?
I love when you ask me this question, and I never come prepared for it because I'm like, there's just so many good things. Well, since everyone's harping on this Maryland man story, I think, and they're still doing that, by the way, which is funny. I really think that something that's going under the radar are these baby bonuses and what the president wants to do for American families that encourage Americans to get married and have kids. I think this is something that isn't being reported on enough. I believe that everyone else is talking about tariffs and trade. And while that's the hottest story, I think also the federal judges trying to block President Trump's agenda, especially when it comes to banning DEI practices in K through 12 schools. I think that's something else that's going underreported. There's so many things that the president is accomplishing and signing off on, especially when it comes to schools this past week. The president has the best in mind for the American people, and every time he steps into that Oval Office and announces a new executive order, I think it's something to celebrate. And I think people should do their own research as far as what the president is truly doing instead of just going off of what the mainstream media is saying.
Yeah, I'm with you there on the baby bonuses. It seems like conservative audiences have been split upon whether they like it or they dislike it. And I wonder if you have any insight on what cabinet officials or members of the administration feel. Is it kind of that split that we're seeing online when it comes to the idea of these baby bonuses, or is it the administration's in kind of lockstep with it?
They're pretty in lockstep, I'd say. When I was speaking to May Mailman, the senior policy advisor, she was telling me that the goal is to not be living paycheck to paycheck when it comes to having children and kind of eliminate that sense of, well, I can't have another child because I can't afford it. And essentially giving parents and families the option of living off of one income if that's what they want to do. And that's something that the senior policy advisor is really telling me and breaking down for me is because, a lot of these families, I mean, while daycare is fine and that's okay, and it's also could be encouraged, it's also encouraged, to have a parent at home and to
Yep.
maybe live off of one income if that's what the mother or the father wants to do. So by giving this kind of an incentive, many critics are saying that this is kind of a business transaction or having children just for the free 5K. But that's not what this administration is trying to do. The messaging behind it is to be able to provide more and maybe have the incentive that if you want another child, then God willing, you can have one and it can be a blessing instead of a burden.
Yeah, but it's gonna be interesting how this plays out because a lot of conservatives look at this and they see the welfare programs and they think that this is going to
Right.
incentivize single motherhood and it's going to do a lot of the things that we've seen those welfare programs do.
Right, right. And that's an interesting take. And, I know the president has been very pro-life when it comes to, his stance on this.
Yep.
And, that can also be considered a very towing the line kind of argument because the president is also in favor of IVF treatments, which to many pro-lifers is kind of controversial to them. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, the president, if he comes out in full-blown pro-life, that's where you lose a lot of other Republicans or maybe other middle of the road voters. So it's a very tight rope the president has to walk when it comes to these kinds of issues. And, sometimes, if you aren't in full support of what the president is doing when it comes to that, you got to find at least some kind of common ground because, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of IVF. I used to be. And, after doing some research, maybe I'm not,
Yep.
but I'm still in support because the president is trying to promote families. And at the end of the day, you got to look at this is only going to benefit the United States, I think, and for families, for everyday people.
No, I hear you. I'm torn on the IVF stuff too.
Right.
It's the
tough.
more you look into it, it's like, oh gosh, that isn't
Right.
that isn't what I envisioned.
Yeah.
So next week on Tuesday marks 100 days of the Trump administration. How does the administration feel that they've done so far? And are there any? Is there going to be a huge party? Is there going to be? Are they going to have pizza for you guys?
I hope so. What's funny is that when I was speaking to this deputy comms director, Kaylin Dorr, yesterday here at the White House, he alluded to the fact that this is just the beginning. I mean, 100 days is nothing. Just wait to see what the president has planned over the next 3.5 years. And I was interested to see, how this 100 days compares to his first term's 100 days. Maybe there's
That's
something that
interesting.
he decided to do differently this time around that he didn't do the first time. And what I think we'll
Like trust
hear.
neocons.
Yeah, right. Yeah, do better vetting, of course.
Yeah.
But I know that the president is doing a huge rally in Michigan, Macomb County, Michigan, on Tuesday. I believe it's April 29th, because the 30th marks the 100 days. But he's alluding to the fact that this is going to be a stop. It could be one of a few stops on his 100-day tour, but he's
Interesting.
returning back to Michigan. I believe this is his second rally since taking office. His first one was right when he won. He went to Vegas, I believe, for a crypto summit. But this is going to be his first return back to Michigan since winning the election, where he's going to Macomb County. He's going to be touting his 100-day achievements. And what's interesting about Macomb County is that he won this county by 13 points in November. And it's home to a lot of Reagan Democrats as well, and a lot of working class people. So I think he's looking to kind of celebrate that, return back to that state, and kind of rein it in, make it do a full circle moment. But I'll be very curious to see what he hits upon during this rally. I believe that it's going to be around 6 p.m. Eastern time. We're still waiting on more details on where exactly it'll be, if it's an indoor-outdoor location, how long it's going to be, and if it's going to be one of many other stops on his 100-day tour.
Cool. I mean, it's something to look forward to. It seems like there's always something to look forward to. Monica Paige joins us every Friday at 10:05. Monica, how can we keep up with you and your reporting?
Thanks so much, Chris. You can find me on X at Monica Page TV, and also Instagram at Monica Page TV to keep up with all my latest reports and whatever's happening here at this White House. It's always a busy day.
Well,
every week.
we really appreciate you joining the show, and I'm serious. I'm going to get you a pair of New Balance. That way you can race those leftist reporters to the front of the line.
I'll be sprinting. They won't even know what hit them.
I love it. Monica Paige on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, Monica.